All right, what is going on, my friends? You guys are joining me for my secondary pressing day of this week because we moved to that 8-day split. Yesterday was my rest day. Ate a lot of food. This morning, ate a lot of food. So on paper, we should be pretty strong today. Rotator cuff issue is kind of still sticking around. So first I got some benching to do, maybe work up to a top double-ish. Back down set. And then on paper, I'm supposed to log press today. Although log is so far the most difficult motion on my rotator cuff, I've been able to do a little bit of vertical pressing with some discomfort, but nothing too bad. Something I feel I should work through. But log has been the kind of constant, little bit harder type motion on it. So we're gonna do log if I have the capability, and if not, I think I'm gonna break in the overhead seat that I bought. Just do some seated military pressing for the shoulders, just drive some blood flow and hopefully speed up the rate that's recovering. Usually benching doesn't aggravate it at all, so we'll get that done first. And hopefully, as I should be on paper, I'll be pretty strong today, so maybe we'll do something cool. All right, so I just finished up my general warm-ups. Just a giant set of a bunch of different motions, each one with kind of a purpose of warming up or preparing a certain physical quality that I like to emphasize within my bench press, putting them all together in a giant set to make it kind of cardiovascularly taxing, to make sure that I break a sweat and raise my core body temperature, which in addition to driving localized blood flow is the most important thing about warming up, is that we're rising our core body temperature, breaking a sweat. We enjoy a lot of performance boosts from that, as well as injury risk reduction from that. So that's the main objective. So if you want a video of it, I think a while ago, probably 3 months back, I made a video of the giant set I do before bench, at least one of the ones that I do. I was back at the gym in town. You're welcome to watch that. I'm surprised how many people have been going back and watching some of my back catalog, which is nice because I did put effort into those videos, and I think there's some pretty good ones before I started gaining a reasonable number of subscribers. So I'm glad people are going and watching those. That's awesome. But I realize not all of you have. So really quickly, I think I ran through 3 rounds of a giant set of pull downs, dumbbell overhead press, rear delt flies, dumbbell bench press, and then T-spine mobility and the couch stretch, all done in a giant set, 3 rounds through. Feel pretty good to go. So we're gonna start warming up now on the actual bench press itself. All right, so feeling pretty good. 325 for 2 felt totally fine, about the way it should. Feeling pretty powerful today. At least for the horizontal pressing, the shoulder isn't really giving me any problems, which is phenomenal. No complaints there. So we're gonna keep working our way up. Hopefully the new power bar is gonna come in soon, because I think I'm getting to the top set weights now where benching on the deadlift bar is starting to negatively impact my performance a bit. I'm not really sure by how much. How much of that is my strength being down a little bit and still coming back up, and how much of that is the equipment, the uneven floor, the smaller bench, the deadlift bar. I don't really know how much is each variable, so we'll get at least some of that answered once the power bar comes in, I think a week or 2 from now, because I'm getting real tired of benching on the deadlift bar. But yeah, continuing to work our way up. Someone asked me on the video ideas kind of how to tell when you need some time off, and I'm not necessarily the person to ask because I do not believe I have ever done a week-long deload in my, 8 years of training. I don't think I've taken a full week deload other than the week before some of my early powerlifting meets. Did a proper deload, as I have most of my athletes do, that week of taper. Other than that, not really. I'll dial back for a day or two because I don't think it takes that long to, lose some fatigue. But it kind of ties into, well, what do you look for to know that you might need a deload, right? Maybe you're not a jackass like me and you're actually going to take one. What might be your signs? And I think this is a little bit of an issue, right? Is people will frequently overdiagnose their need for deloads, right? Which is why I often kind of advocate to people a style of training where we try to stay within our recovery capabilities on a weekly basis. That way we don't have to think about constantly, should I be deloading? Should I be pushing? Should I be deloading? Should I be pushing? Because if our goal is to get as strong as we can, there's a pretty significant amount of fatigue that we are going to be under the vast majority of the time. Most really strong people feel not so great a big percentage of the time, right? And so there is such a thing as too far, doing too much work, over accumulating fatigue to where it's going to stunt your rate of progression. But if we're trying to maximize our progression, the level of not feeling great we're going to be under is a lot more than what a lot of people would think. I think a lot of people wishfully think that everybody really strong feels good all the time, and the second they don't, they're like, something's wrong. Well, I don't feel very good all the time. I'll tell you guys that much. But a couple things I look to know whether I am pushing my volume a little too far, and the symptoms for what is a normal amount of fatigue and then what is an overaccumulation of fatigue probably varies by person. I notice if I have a sharp fall off in appetite, I might be overreaching a little bit. If my sleep starts going to shit, that's a pretty consistent one if I'm overdoing it a little bit. I notice that when I'm over fatigued, it takes me longer to break a sweat and get warm. Those are two things that I look for. I think those would be my big three: is my sleep, my appetite, and my warm-up time. Because I generally feel groggy all the time. So I can't look to that one myself. Yeah, I don't have good mental clarity a lot of the time, so I can't look to that one either. But that would kind of be what I look at. Take that with a grain of salt, right? Because I don't really deload. But if you're smarter than me and you actually listen to the advice that I put out there, unlike myself, I think those would be the indicators that I might look to personally. All right. Also, upon reviewing that last clip of me talking, I'm sure a lot of you guys didn't take it this way, but just to be clear, I'm not shitting on anybody for deloading. I think that ramping up your workload across a couple of weeks till a final week where you intentionally exceed your work capacity, and then deloading the following week to try to get like a compensatory slingshotting effect out of that is a perfectly valid training strategy used by people much better than myself, right? So not shitting on anybody for deloading. That's not my point. I'm sure a lot of you didn't take it that way, but I don't like people being mad at me. And now that more people are watching my videos, I worry about it a little bit more. That being said, I found that for myself and my athletes, I feel like while that 3 up, 1 down strategy seems to be extremely effective for very strong people, I've found that for most of my athletes who are more normal sized people, not big, super heavyweight, untested guys, that the benefits we get from that super compensation every 4th week by like that slingshot effect, by overreaching and then deloading, so functional overreaching, the benefit we gain from that is, let's just say that's 5. I don't know. 5 what? I have no idea. 5 oranges. I find that the benefit we gain from getting extra training sessions in by not deloading every 4th week, so getting in that extra like 12 weeks of training every year, yields 7 oranges, right? So what we gain for, I would say, the average lifter in terms of super compensation, in terms of functional overreaching, is less than what we gain by the additional training time and volume we would get from training within our recovery capabilities consistently, in my personal opinion. 480 for 3 in the books. So not a rep PR. Most I've done out here for even a 1 rep so far. My best triple is 505. So we are a little bit less than 5% off of that. I think 4.5% off all-time best strength right now, which is quite good because I think equipment in mind, I started this training cycle maybe 8-9% off all-time strength. So we're bridging that gap relatively quickly. And I don't know how much of that is difference in equipment, right? So my 555 was on a fat pad. My 550 was on a comp spec fat pad, so not wide, but still a better bench. And both of them were not on a fucking deadlift bar. So I don't know how much of that is due to equipment. Maybe the floor being a little uneven. So maybe even closer than that 4.5% off all-time strength. Kind of fingers crossed. It's less than that, which would be my guess. So we're spanning that gap pretty quick. Happy enough with that triple. Gonna move on to some back downs, and then we're gonna see what the shoulder will tolerate in terms of getting in some overhead pressing. Gonna try the seat because it's fun. I've never really pushed seated overhead press all that much. And I'm actually weaker seated than I am standing right now. So that might be worth fixing. Who knows? Okay, so I've started warming up on the seated overhead press on this new seat that I bought. It's relatively tall for a fixed overhead seat, which is nice. Makes it a little harder because what I like to do when I do like a seated military press is to knock my head back as far as I can to get out of the way so I can have a relatively straight bar path. This mirrors the log press quite closely because in your foot rack position, because the log is so big, you have to knock your head back until you're looking straight at the ceiling. So kind of mirrors that position. Feels better for me that way. And this has really quickly made me realize, especially because knocking your head back, the taller the bench is, the harder. If we've got a short fixed bench, we can kind of arch a lot heavier through the mid back and get over the top of it with our back and almost do just like a high incline press instead. With a relatively tall back, we're having to get the head really far back. And this is making me realize very quickly why I hurt my shoulder log pressing. My thoracic extension has gone by the wayside a little bit. So that should be good. It's just getting good at these, I think, will prepare me to go back to doing log pain-free because just getting my head back in a very specific manner, the same way I would in the overhead press, where my torso should be relatively vertical, head back out of the way. That is extremely hard on this bench. And I think that is exactly why I tweaked my shoulder. So we're going to get on top of that. Obviously I'm going to do some like more passive modalities for like work on my T-spine mobility at night before bed. So we can work on that with a higher frequency than just when I'm overhead pressing. But I do think that just getting strong on these will also go a long, long way, right? Because we know that while static stretching does drive changes in mobility, both shorter term and longer term to some degree, we also know that loading a position is equally, if not more efficacious. And we're not really loading it, but we're actively pulling ourselves into it. Strengthening the musculature associated with pulling ourselves into that position should yield some good returns. So that's kind of fun. That's very exciting to kind of get that figured out because I've been trying to put my head on why that is. And looking at my positions in the log press, it's pretty clear. Now with the clarity of hindsight, that kind of thoracic extension was something that was lagging. So going to be emphasizing that within my daily mobility routine and then just trying to build these up. I think the plan for the day on the seated overheads is to not go crazy hard. We're going to kind of do things in a reverse pyramid fashion so I can pre-fatigue my shoulders and try to get some okay work out of the least weight I can to let the rotator cuff rest. So I think I'll probably try, like I said, a 20, then put some weight on, try to aim for a set of 10-ish, very roughly. And if the shoulder's feeling good, ending with a set of 5-ish. Really, really vague, but kind of reversing the volume from like what would be a typical drop set approach. That way I'm a little fatigued and I don't have to load up a bunch of weight for that final set. Hi, buddy.